Hello, hello. Welcome to this week's live Monday music motivation. You know that feeling, and it's really one of the absolute worst feelings that we have when we're practicing, and it's that feeling of, man, I should be able to do this. I could do this yesterday. Oh, this is sounding bad no matter what I do. And of course, that feeling that I'm talking about is frustration. But there's a really interesting thing that I've noticed kind of as a pattern in my students and also kind of in my own personal experience through my clarinet playing journey. And it's that there's kind of two distinct subgroups of people who experience frustration or never experience frustration during the journey. A lot of us experience frustration, but those two subgroups that don't really experience frustration are some of my best students, which seems pretty intuitive and obvious. Like, of course, they're good. They have it all figured out. They're not going to get frustrated. And then the other subgroup is some of my worst students, which might be a little bit more interesting to you, that those are the two groups that don't experience frustration. Everybody in between generally does. And I think it's important to define how I'm defining best and worst students. The best students are the ones who are most kind of enthusiastic about learning and the best at kind of taking the information I'm giving them and implementing it and applying it in a positive and productive way. And the worst students are the ones who are much slower to absorb the information and implement it in a productive way. And there certainly is a correlation between my best students having a better level of playing and my worst students having a lower level of playing. But it's not a 100% correlation. There's some really great students who are lower level players and some less good students who don't progress and implement things as well, who are fairly high level players as well. So it's not just about playing ability, but I think there's some really interesting insight to gain. And I think we can kind of see it in my journey, how kind of frustration has progressed for me. So when I first started playing, I was never frustrated. I was going to be the best clarinetist ever. I was one of the better players at my school. I would get out my band music to practice and I'd be able to kind of figure out the notes and play them. And I was pretty happy about it. Then I started taking lessons and my teacher insisted on me using the metronome, and then I would try to play my scales with the metronome and it would fall apart and I would get so frustrated that I would kick my stand across the room. And then eventually I got better and I got to the point where I very rarely feel frustrated in practice. It still happens occasionally. I am human. But for the most part, it doesn't. And it's kind of an interesting thing. What I think it's related to is kind of our awareness of our problems and our kind of acceptance of the process and the journey. So in the very early stages, most beginners don't feel frustrated because they don't have that high of expectations. And that is kind of like my worst students or my slowest progressing students. They don't have very high expectations, which is fine. We can still have fun making music and learning things and exploring things, but they're just not holding themselves to very high expectations. So they don't progress very quickly because they don't have that kind of nagging like, oh, this sounds bad, or I can't do this and I want to figure out how. And it's just maybe a personality thing, maybe just a level of interest in the instrument in general, like no judgment at all. But that's where that kind of slow progress comes from, is low expectations, and you're never frustrated because you're always meeting your expectations and you're pretty satisfied with how things are going. Then for the vast majority of students and most people's journeys, it's in that kind of zone of frustration where you have high expectations and there's things you want to do on the instrument and you feel like you should be able to do them, but then you get frustrated when you can't do them, and it becomes quite upsetting. And unfortunately, that's where most people end up quitting. People who don't have high expectations, maybe they don't ever get playing great, but they can kind of go on forever, just kind of happy as a clam, playing very mediocrely. No judgment for that. That's awesome. People, once they get those higher expectations and want to be able to do something that they can't currently, that's when they get frustrated and they quit because they feel like it's a lost cause, or kind of it's this just massive futility and like, why am I even trying if I can't do this and can't figure it out? So then that leaves the best students or the best players, and they have high expectations, but they've figured out kind of how to progress towards those expectations in a fairly reliable, not linear, but fairly reliable way. And they kind of trust the process and know that what they're doing is going to pay off eventually. So even if there's that thing that they can't do now, they don't feel like they should be able to do it. They know that doing the right work and knowing that the work that they are doing is going to get them there eventually. They also have this kind of acceptance of where they're at. And it again goes back to the kind of shoulding on yourself, where shoulding on yourself is the biggest source of frustration. But the more advanced players, they don't should on themselves. They accept where their things are. I have days where I sound terrible and I'm like, that sounds terrible. I want to sound better than that. What can I do? What can I control to move closer to the sound that I want? And maybe I don't get sounding my absolute very best that day. And that's totally fine. I get sounding as best as I can in that moment, and I accept wherever that is for the day, knowing that the next day is going to be different. It could be worse. Hopefully it'll be better, but it's going to be different, and it's going to vary from day to day. And my job is to show up and approach what I'm doing in that day, in that moment, accepting where I'm at, meeting myself where I'm at, and working from there. And while it sometimes can feel absolutely frustrating, if it's like, yesterday I was at this level and working towards this level, today I'm like at this level, and if you try to work towards this level when you're starting from here, that's going to be a much bigger gap that's going to lead to a lot more frustration, and you're going to feel like, oh, yesterday I was doing it at this level, so I should be able to do that today. But if you accept, this is where I'm at today, I'm only going to work to get this far, but I know in the long run, the work that I'm doing to go from here to here is going to help me progress in the future and move forward in general. Then you're going to continue to move forward and you're not going to feel frustrated. So that was actually kind of the preface of what I wanted to talk about today. That was a very long preface, but the actual idea will be very short. So the idea is that frustration can actually be your biggest strength and your biggest opportunity for growth in your mindset and in your playing. Because when you're feeling frustrated, if you flip that mindset around of like, instead of I should be able to do this, this feels kind of futile, and instead think, I'm feeling frustrated because I want to be able to do this. How can I meet myself where I am and move one step in the direction of where I want to be? You're not going to get all the way there today necessarily, but you can move one step. And then maybe doing that one step feels pretty good. So maybe what's the next step? Maybe that step feels pretty good. So maybe what's the next step? And maybe you can in one day get to where you think you should be. But oftentimes you can't. And as long as you're taking that step forward, that's great. So you want to kind of let the frustration lead the way and follow the frustration and find like, oh, what's frustrating me that I can't do it? Why can't I do it? How can I move one step down the path that I want to be going? And that sounds a whole lot like deliberate practice, actually, where you reflect on it and say, reflect what's frustrating me. Why is that frustrating me? Why can't I do that? What's my plan to move one step in that direction? But finding that frustration in your playing, accepting where you're at, and moving one step forward is the moral of the story for today. And using that frustration to lead the growth and lead the way forward. This is also very similar to the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. The fixed mindset person says, I should be able to do this. I'm frustrated that I can't. That says something about my identity. The growth mindset person says, I want to be able to do these amazing things. Let's take the challenge of today. Let's see where we're at and let's move one step towards my expectations of where I want to be without shoulding on myself, basically. So hopefully that gives you some food for thought. Let's go ahead and fill out our practice journal for the day. You can go to quickstartclarinet.com/get started to download this exact template or make it for yourself. It's the date for the week, reflection of how things are going, goal for what you want to achieve this week, and your plan for when you're going to make it happen and what you're going to do during that. Take that plan, fill it out, fill out your practice template, put it in your calendar, set the reminder so you show up and practice. And as you're practicing this week, when you feel the frustration coming up, be like, oh yes, I have high expectations. I have something that I want to achieve. I'm not going to shit on myself. I'm going to meet myself where I am. I'm going to make that one step forward, and that's productive practicing. And then I'm going to trust the process in the long term that no matter where I'm starting from each day, if I make one step forward, then over the long run, I'm going to learn the skills and develop the facility that I need to do those things that I feel like I should be able to do. So happy practicing this week. Let me know if you have any questions or thoughts about this in the comments below. Fill out your practice template, get it scheduled. Have a great week of practicing, and I will see you next week on the next live Monday Music Motivation. Have a great week, everybody.